Imagine this, you receive a speeding ticket through the post and you realize, okay, this could mean points on your license or a driving ban. There is another situation where your license is not more than 2 years old, but now what happens is like you get 6 points. If you get 6 points, you know that you have to give your license back, you have to prepare for the theory test again, you'll have to prepare for driving, practical test again. And this is something you want to avoid. Now you are panicking. But now there is this your friend, he comes to you and he says, okay, he knows someone. What he would do is he would put someone else's information as a driver, okay, first name, last name, his driver's details like address and driver license number, and it's easy for you to get away with it, right? It sounds so simple, it sounds so fun, because you want to save your license. But what if I tell you this could be the worst mistake of your life, because it could lead to sort of some serious consequences, like in some sort of situation like prison, preventing course of justice, and maybe a massive, a long ban. So you don't want to be doing that. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining to you what happens when you submit someone else's information as a driver to avoid speeding tickets. And I'll also talk about penalties, MS90, what it is, and I'll also talk about some serious offenses like preventing course of justice, which you should be aware of before you take this step. So if you're in a situation where you don't know about these sort of situations, please stick to the video and I will talk about it. So let's see how it starts. Okay, now when the speeding offense is detected, the registered keeper usually receives a Notice of Intended Prosecution along with Section 172 request. Now what is Section 172 request? In simple words, you have to identify the driver. When I say identify the driver, it does not involve any assumptions or any guesses. It's just a very straightforward process. You just tell who it was. So if you are the driver at the time of offense, you identify yourself. If you are not the driver at the time of offense, you just give the right driver's information. Well, it's a very, very straightforward process, but this is the point where people start to make some serious mistakes. Now, what happens at this stage, you start to think, okay, there are quite a few things that I'm going to lose my license, and my insurance will go up, I cannot afford any points on my license, there'll be a driving ban or something, I already have points on my license, I can't afford more. At this point, what you try to do is you try to find out ways to get out of it, okay? There are a lot of TikTok videos where people offer you services where they say we can help you get away with these speeding tickets or points or things like that. Or you might find find your friends or look out for your partners to just submit the information to just get away with this. And a lot of times why you're trying to do this, because you want to just get away with it, and the person who you are identifying, they were not the driver at all. It actually feels very, very simple, but trust me, this is a very, very serious mistake, because this is where you cross a serious line. Now, before we get into a bigger thing, let's talk about MS90. What is MS90? MS90 is something that you get if you fail to identify the driver. This could be for several reasons. For example, you did not respond to the letter at all, or you did not respond in a timely manner, like within the given time frame, or third, you actually failed to identify the driver, okay, without giving a proper evidence, like you tried to find out the driver. Now, the consequences, super simple. You get 6 points. You can find it anywhere on Google. Confirm 6 points on your license, up to £1,000 fine. And this will be given by the court, because police start said court actually gives you MS90, and DVLA records that MS90 against your license. One of the biggest thing that insurance company will not be really happy with you. Your insurance premium will go extremely high from the next year, I would say, because they look at it as dishonesty and non-cooperation. So you do not want that. So in the first place, if you identify yourself, you get a driving points, for example, your insurance might not go might not increase that much as compared to when you get MS90. So MS90 is a proper red flag for insurance companies. Now let's talk about what happens when you actually give someone else's information, where you actually commit a crime. Now, this is the point where things get really serious. When you knowingly submit someone else's information as a driver when they were not the driver, this is called preventing course of justice. But remember, it's not a driving offense anymore, because you're knowingly submitting someone else's information, a false information, you're lying, it's a criminal offense. And the criminal offense was coming in with with a lot of consequences, I would say a lot of fines, criminal conviction, which will stay on your record, and obviously with one more thing, which is massive, prison. to be very honest, prison. Yes, people have been to jail because they were swapping information, they were giving someone else's information. Now, it's very, very common for like, the police department to contact you back if you submit someone else's information. So for example, you submitted someone else's information, your police department will come back to you and they will ask you to generate some documents. What sort of documents? The person who was driving the vehicle at the time of offense, you have to provide their insurance details, right? And if you submit fake insurance details, backdated fake insurance details, they do have the system to verify that. And if they detect anomaly there, if they detect that you're you're lying to them, that's where you're actually done. You have actually committed a crime. Now, once you have committed a crime, rest of the consequences I've talked about is going to go on your record. It's a criminal offense, obviously unlimited fines, and maybe you can go to prison. But one thing people do not realize, because obviously a lot of times people just contact someone, they pay someone some money, £700, £800, and they submit some information and they just rely on them, they just relax. But for example, if you found your friend, for example, right, or your partner agrees to actually forward their information to save you from getting those points or like a ban, one thing that you have to realize that you are actually the partner in that that criminal activity, and you both can be prosecuted. So at this point, you just have to realize, like, is it worth taking that risk? Because this is a proper criminal offense, and people do take it lightly. When I'm saying people do take it lightly, it's usually like the early stages because they're more concerned about like not losing their license. They're more concerned about like not getting a ban. But you actually have to realize like what you yourself like getting yourself into. Like you're actually trying to avoid a smaller problem, so you're getting yourself into a bigger problem, and you're taking someone with yourself. If he's your friend or your partner or something like that. Okay, when I say like people pay people, so someone on TikTok, definitely have personally seen ads there on TikTok where they just give money, they submit someone else's information. Trust me, they cannot save you. And I have like numerous examples where like police comes back to you and they ask you for the insurance details or insurance proof. And when you go back to those scammers, they do not give you any information because they cannot generate that certificate. They cannot generate that information. It can't be like the motor insurance database ever, like in the back date or something like that. So you lose your money there, and also you lose everything, to be very fair, including your license. And in case even at this stage, if you're not able to generate that insurance certificate and you shut up, you get MS90. Once again, MS90, failure to identify the driver. But obviously that's on the discretion of the court. What they decide is a preventing course of justice. If the police submits like enough evidence that is preventing course of justice, they will treat it like that. Or failure to identify the driver, that'd be MS90. So things can go wrong at this stage both ways to MS90 as well. Again, once again, not a big offense like preventing course of justice, but you can land on the other side as well, which is preventing course of justice if you're not able to produce that insurance certificate, and obviously you can not. So try thinking about it if you want to submit someone else's information. So now let me just explain this to you with an example. Let's say like you get notice of intended prosecution and you feel like you're gonna get 3 points. You go to your friend, you say like, can you take my points, right? And if you submit his information, obviously police are gonna come back to you. They're gonna ask you, can you submit the information, like the insurance information at the day and time of offense? If you fail to do so, you both will be prosecuted, remember. But in other situation, you get the letter and you do not respond at all because of, or you do not respond within time, you get MS90. So what's better? The easiest way is you just give the right information, do not lie to them. But one more thing I want to tell you here, which is really, really important. A lot of people, they tell you that, okay, we can help you get away with it if you can prove like you actually do not know the driver, and they actually take it as or try to tell you as a loophole in the system that like you don't know who the driver was. And I'm not going to say, but like there are some professionals as well, they tell you like, okay, we can help you get away with that by proving that you don't know who the driver was. Your choice. You want to take it as a loophole in the system, because that is also lying, to be very fair. If you know you were the driver and now you're trying to prove that you actually don't know who was the driver, and you have circumstances like you're just trying to prove like fake evidence, things like that, where once again, you know that you were the driver. So that could also lead you to preventing course of justice if proven later, and will have the same consequences. So decide accordingly. Now, it's really, really simple for the police these days to actually send you the letter back and say like, okay, you nominated someone, can you just share the insurance information? And they can open an investigation where they can actually check the records, they can just cross-verify the information that you've submitted with the motor insurance database, and they can find the inconsistency and they can actually hold you liable for preventing course of justice. Now, I can give you one example where I know, one case where someone actually paid someone on TikTok £700 to help them get away with this, with the points. Now what happened was that person submitted someone else's information and actually sent a screenshot that, okay, everything is done. Now police came back to that person asking, okay, if that was the person who was driving at the time of offense, can you actually generate the insurance certificate for that person? So this person goes back to that TikToker, and says, all right, okay, they're asking for the insurance information, can you help me with that? And now that guy was actually generating the fake insurance information. Now at that point, this person who was actually taking the help from the TikToker, he realized, okay, I am in a massive problem. If I submit sort of like a wrong insurance certificate, then it would definitely be a preventing of course of justice and I could go to jail for that. And at that point, he actually contacted back and he asked him like the sort of information, like the TikToker, the sort of information or the insurance that you're about to generate, would it be showing in the motor insurance database? At that point, that TikToker actually blocked him. So he lost his money. He got into a problem because of that person where he could have just submitted his information for what? 3 points. Now, further, as a result, he went to the court and later he submitted his information, by the way, right? Instead of providing the insurance certificate of that person he nominated, and then he got MS90. So I feel like not worth taking a risk, to be very, very fair. And now there are like some high profile cases online where you can just go and research about it. Like a former minister in the UK, he was sentenced 6 months in prison because instead of taking points, he agreed with his wife that he's going to transfer points to her. And not only this, like a son was sentenced to like 6 months in prison because he wanted to just nominate his mother as a driver, 71 years old mother as a driver. You can definitely go online and you can search about that as well. You'll find the whole story. And also there are like one more example of former police officer. She tried to just, avoid the speeding ticket. She just forwarded her information. She was sentenced to like 16 months in prison. So this is not something like you want to do with your life, I would say. So this is a very, very sort of like a small offense initially in case, I would say. Why I'm saying very, very small offense, because if you just submit someone else's information, it becomes to a massive, massive bigger sort of case. And I'm like, obviously, if you get yourself in a criminal case, as compared to that, this sounds like a smaller one. So I would recommend you to be really, really honest. I've explained you everything. If you have any more views on it, if you have any questions, you can ask in the comment section. But I tell you one more thing, that I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a solicitor, I don't know about it. This whole video I made is based on research and my observations. So I just wanted to inform you that like it's not a very good idea to submit someone else's information, but I'll see you in the next video.